I call the meeting of the April 15th, 2026 meeting of the House Public Safety meeting to order. Quorum is present. Before we begin our meeting, I want to remind everyone that the committee chair maintains control of this hearing. I have the following expectations. Signs and placards are not permitted in the hearing room. Verbal outbursts, shouting, or disruptive behavior will not be tolerated. Applause or other audible demonstrations are not allowed. For safety reasons, standing or sitting in the walkways or alleys, or standing or obstructing in your seat is prohibited. If you require any accommodations, please speak with our sergeant staff, identified by their gold ties. Troopers and house security personnel are present to ensure everyone's safety. If you receive an entrance ticket, please retain it, as it may be required for re-entry if you leave the hearing room. Failure to comply with these guidelines may result in removal from the hearing rooms. Thank you to the Sergeant-at-Arms who are present and for helping maintain decorum in the committee room. Representative Duran, have you had a chance to review the minutes of the April 14th meeting?
Yes, I have.
Representative Duran moves approval of the April 14th, 2026 meetings. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. Motion carries, and the minutes of the April 14th meeting are approved. First bill on the agenda today is House File 4821. Representative Stier, please go to the testifier table with your testifiers. Representative Stier moves House File 4810 before the committee. And Representative Stier, you have a delete all amendment coded DE1. Please describe your amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the DE amendment is in place now due to the financial constraints that we have in the state. I've removed pretty much everything out, and we're going to be looking for a task force that'll work over the interim to figure out a solution.
Any questions for Representative Stier on the DE1? All in favor of adopting the DE1 amendment signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. Motion carries, and the DE1 is adopted. Representative Stier, please just begin your testimony and have your testifiers introduce themselves and provide their testimony.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for the opportunity to present House File 4810, which addresses a critical issue facing our emergency communication systems by working towards a long-term sustainable funding source for Armor Radio. We're at a point where infrastructure is aging. There's no stable long-term funding mechanism and no clear long-term plan for replacing or upgrading the system or to cover life cycle equipment replacement. While I believe this is an issue that requires immediate action, it is a complex and involves many stakeholders, so a task force would be a good starting point. This does not have any cost. DPS, Assistant Commissioner Cunningham is here if we have funding questions. And with that, I'll pass it on to the testifiers.
Please have your testifiers state their name and begin their testimony.
Good afternoon, chairs and members. My name is Dave Beer. I am a commissioner at Scott County, where we work to restore hope and transform lives. Today, we are talking about ARMOR, the statewide infrastructure system that has been, and that's kind of a key phrase, has been an effective public safety comms system forever. When it works, and when it doesn't, lives are at stake. The original concept of the state building the backbone with counties and cities adding their own subsystems to meet coverage and capacity needs might have made sense in the 90s. The ever-increasing patchwork type approach to funding no longer meets the need and jeopardizes safety. The current practice of local entities having individual maintenance contracts to maintain locally owned ARMOR infrastructure is not cost-effective use of taxpayer funds. Statewide contracts would produce cost savings for taxpayer dollars immediately. Given the vendor's practice of requiring infrastructure platform changes every 5 to 10 years or so, which requires substantial capital investment, the current ARMOR model of local and state infrastructure ownership must, deserves, and needs to be reviewed and modernized. I think we've heard that term around here this year. If only to assist in aligning 87 counties plus municipal and state capital budgeting processes. While we would like to see the underlying bill pass, we understand this issue is a complex one and a task force is a good first step. The ARMOR system must find a dedicated and sustainable funding source for infrastructure operations, maintenance, and capital replacement. Good policy requires good and full partnership. We're holding up our end of the bargain, and we ask higher levels of government, like you, to do the same. Seamless systems save lives. Siloed systems cost them. And with that, I will hand it over to Captain Haas.
Next testifier, state your name and begin your testimony.
My name is Scott Haas. I'm a captain with the Scott County Sheriff's Office.
Begin.
Over 2 decades ago, leaders in Minnesota recognized the need for a statewide shared radio system. The initial implementation built radio towers with the goal of providing outdoor coverage 95% of the time. It funded enough repeaters for the needs of those initial MnDOT and State Patrol users. The legislature later provided support to aid local jurisdictions by partially funding additional towers and repeaters that were needed by local police, fire, and our EMS providers. Those local enhancements are used every day and shared amongst local and state and regional partners. This model really created a patchwork of system ownership and maintenance responsibilities. The State Emergency Communications Board approves system standards for use. MnDOT maintains the core network and manages the upgrade schedule, and our local owners are billed on a prorated formula based on their investment and maintenance responsibilities. The Armor system is one network shared across this entire state. The current funding model and maintenance model creates vulnerabilities. If one county cannot afford an upgrade, the entire upgrade across the state could be compromised. A cyber incident impacting a local enhancement could have widespread impacts. To provide a local perspective, Scott County owns about 1/2 of the infrastructure in the Norwood subsystem. That's the subsystem that supports Scott and Carver County's area. Even though we own half the infrastructure in that area, our users are only using about 16% of the actual system use. The rest is used by our regional partners and state users. So that investment requires us to maintain a maintenance service contract with Motorola, this system vendor, or to hire staff and train that staff to be able to do that work themselves. We also maintain buildings, generators, battery systems. We pay ongoing costs, including utilities, and we also have to replace equipment when it fails. We need a dedicated, sustainable funding model to support the Armor system infrastructure at both the state and the local levels. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other persons who want to testify in this bill?
Myself, sir.
Oh,
One more.
that,
Terry's
the one
spot,
right in the
so.
middle. You look so much like Terry.
Yeah. I do, yeah, we look alike.
Tony Martin of
Yeah.
Hennepin County, begin your testimony.
Thank you, Chair, members of the committee. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. My name is Tony Martin. I'm the Emergency Communications Director with the Hennepin County Sheriff's Office, overseeing 911 dispatching and our Armor system, which includes 18 tower sites and about 9,000 radios for our first responders. I'm here to express strong support in convening this task force to establish a stable, dedicated state funding model for the Armor Public Safety Radio Network. Armor is the backbone of interoperability communications in Minnesota. Its reliability is what allows law enforcement, fire and EMS, and other responders to coordinate during both daily operations and major emergencies. But that reliability depends on continued maintenance, upgrades, and capital replacement. The system cannot meet tomorrow's demands if we do not invest in it today. And that's why we're looking for the work group. Armor has a long-standing record of performance when it works. As Commissioner Beer said, when it works, no one notices. When it doesn't, the consequences are immediate. Radio communication must function 100% of the time. Dispatch centers rely on immediate communication with responders, and responders rely on dispatch. Because agencies from across the state routinely support one another, our infrastructure must be supported on a statewide level. We must recognize that 911 revenue funds cannot be the long-term funding source for the Armor infrastructure. These dollars are dedicated to the 911 network and supporting Minnesota's PSAPs. With next generation 911 approaching, we need every dollar in that that'll need to be funded to build and sustain our network's 911 network as well. It cannot and should not compete with significance for reoccurring capital needs. This is why convening the task force is so important. A dedicated, sustainable funding mechanism for Armor is essential to protecting the statewide interoperability we all depend on. Establishing a clear framework and investing at a statewide level will ensure Minnesota continues to provide safe, coordinated, and effective public safety communications for every community. This is not just an infrastructure funding issue, it's a life safety issue. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you. Now, is there anyone else? Member questions? Co-Chair Moller.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thanks for bringing this bill forward. Representative Stier, this is something we've been talking about for years. Certainly, Chair Novotny, ever since you and I are in the legislature, and it just seems like whatever we can sort of throw in here or there or sprinkle throughout the years, we try to do, recognizing that it's not sustainable. We actually do have a solution for this, House File 3230, which is actually ironically the bill we're using. We're going to do a DE today and put different language in it, but it is in everybody's packets. So if you want to take a look at this bill before we change it with the DE, was allowing for 911 surcharges to be added to cell phone lines, and we were able to get at 50 cents a month. It was $36 million per year, and this bill divides that between Armor radios and victim services, which also we've talked about in this committee needs a sustainable source of funding. So I appreciate the task force, although I am disappointed we can't enact 3230 because I think it would negate the need for a task force, and it would result in enough funding to support both the Armor work and the victim services funding gap. That said, I do have a couple of questions about the task force. Will any of the duties be considering changing vendors, or is it locked into Motorola? I know I've met with them in the past and I just can't remember. It's my understanding Motorola is the one vendor and you can't really have a patchwork of different vendors, but I'm just curious if you could address that.
Mr. Martin.
Thank you. High level, the work group specifically here is not necessarily for finding a new vendor for our radio system. Most of the work group specifically here is to focus on long-term funding and sustainability for the infrastructure element there.
Chair Moller.
Yeah, thank you. And again, have a solution here in House File 3230. And then I just wanted to make a comment to Chair Novotny, similar to comments that you've made about task forces, and I'm happy to hear that they'll absorb the cost for yours. My domestic violence task force has a very high price tag, so I don't think it's always one-sided when some of those costs come back. I did note on lines 2.23 and 2.24 that DPS will provide meeting space and administrative assistance for the task force. They are charging for the DV task force for that, so I would ask to take a look at that when we revisit that bill. But in any event, I'm good job on getting this down to no cost. Thank you.
Thank you, Co-Chair. I will close with saying this. We also had Bill 3547, which would have been a win-win for freedom and fireworks, which would have provided substantial funding towards this system. With that, Chair or Representative Stier, closing comments.
Thank you for your consideration in this bill. I did receive a letter from the Minnesota Sheriff's Association in support of this bill as well. I just appreciate your support. Thank you.
With that, House File 4810 as amended is laid over. Thank you, Representative Stier, and to your testifiers. Next bill on the agenda is House File 4597. Vice Chair Witte, please go to the testifier table with your testifiers. Vice Chair Witte moves House File 4597 before the committee. Vice Chair Witte, please begin your testimony and have your testifiers introduce themselves and provide their testimony.
Thank you, Chair Novotny. Thank you, Chair Moller. House File 4597 is funding provided for development and implementation of a unified 911 center awareness platform that allows 911 centers to communicate and coordinate emergency responses in money appropriate. The bill will help improve emergency response time, especially during a large-scale emergency and high call volume events for the metro region. Right now, when a call comes into a 911 center, the operator gathers the information, and if the emergency is outside their jurisdiction, The operator must contact the appropriate 911 center, often by phone. If the phone lines are backed up, this is problematic. The bill appropriates funding for a unified 911 center awareness platform, which allows call centers to communicate directly with one another in real time. With a 911 unified platform, a 911 operator can take and enter information directly in the appropriate jurisdiction's dispatch center, which allows for faster coordination, more efficiency use of resources, and allows emergency responders to be dispatched more quickly. The funding supports the development and implementation of the system as well as 2 years of ongoing maintenance. With that, I will turn it over to my testifiers.
Mr. Beer, welcome back to the committee. State your name for the record and begin your testimony.
Sure. Thank you, chairs and members. Me again, Dave Beer, Scott County Commissioner, where again, we work to restore hope and transformation in people's lives. Today, the high number of public safety answer points, or better known as PSAPs, in the metro region, along with their close borders, requires daily working relationships among the region's PSAPs, including the need to transfer calls and data between one another. Time is everything. The MESB and its PSAPs has long recognized that need for PSAPs to exchange computer-aided dispatch or CAD data, commissioning a study in 2017, successfully lobbying for CAD-to-CAD interoperability to be included in the 2019-2021 statewide Emergency Communication Board's strategic plan, say that 5 times fast, and finally releasing an RFP in 2023, which was not awarded due to higher than anticipated costs. The MESB strongly believes that this unified 911 awareness platform, which will allow PSAPs to seamlessly share CAD data with one another, will have a positive effect on public safety in the metro region and will particularly help save lives in motor vehicle accidents. So that is my brief testimony. I'll pass it off to Nancy.
Next up, we have Nancy Pass, Ramsey County Emergency Communications Center. State your name for the record and begin your testimony.
Thank you, Chair and members of the committee. My name is Nancy Pass, and I am the Director of the Ramsey County Emergency Communications Center. We provide 911 call taking and dispatch services for every city and township in Ramsey County, including the Minnesota State Fairgrounds. In recent years, Ramsey County and several neighboring counties have invested in direct point-to-point CAD connections between our 911 centers. These connections address longstanding gaps on border calls, mutual aid responses, and multi-jurisdiction incidents. Today, we are connected with Hennepin, Anoka, Washington counties, as well as Alina Health EMS. These connections have produced measurable life-saving improvements. They've reduced call processing times. They've cut down on transfers, improved the accuracy of the information sent to the responders, reduced human error, and increased shared situational awareness. But significant gaps still remain. We lack connections with some bordering counties and with other key public safety partners in Ramsey County, such as the University of Minnesota St. Paul campus, Metro Transit, and the Minnesota State Patrol. This has real consequences. For example, when a medical emergency occurs at the Capitol, both St. Paul Fire and EMS, as well as Capitol Security, respond. But no matter who receives the 911 call, someone must still make the separate phone call and relay the information. That adds time, introduces a possibility of error, and limits shared awareness. A unified awareness platform would change that. If we receive a call from the Capitol complex, we could enter the information once and with a single click, send it directly into Capitol Security's pending queue with no call, no relay of information, and no delay. This is the future of 911 interoperability, and it is achievable. For these reasons, I respectfully urge your support for House File 4597. This platform will save seconds, it will save minutes, and ultimately it will save lives. It will also strengthen daily operations and improve our response to high-impact events. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you. Next up is Director Tony Martin, Hennepin County.
I'm back. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the community. As stated, Tony Martin, Emergency Communications Director with the Hennepin County Sheriff's Office. Kind of echoing what my colleagues stated, really every day across our center and across the metro, there's traffic accidents and medical emergencies that require that coordinated response from all 3 disciplines, and actually adding alternative response for mental health type stuff that's kind of on the forefront here. But currently when somebody calls 911, the public expects a quick response. And when multiple responders arrive quickly, that means the system worked. But we all know it can work and it should work better. Right now, when a 911 center, when they're not connected, each medical or traffic incident requires phone transfers follow-up that have already been gathered. For the calls on highways and interstates, this would include multiple additional calls to notify and coordinate with State Patrol, whether it be tows, updates on injuries, and just coordinating with also MnDOT. With that, these extra steps add time, they introduce errors and slow coordination, and moments when seconds truly matter. A metro-wide, and actually statewide, is a goal, but would allow information gathered at an initial 911 center to be shared instantly. That means no repeated questions to multiple dispatch centers or callers, no manual relay, faster and more efficient dispatching across agencies and disciplines for day-to-day calls. It's a modernization that will save time, reduce confusion, and ultimately save lives. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Martin. Representative Witte, I see you have one more person back there. Is she willing to testify? Thank you. I'd like to remind members that Assistant Commissioner Cunningham is still in the room, and if you have any questions, I would really appreciate someone calling him up to ask a question, because this is my last chance to get him on board. Representative Witte, anything before we go to members?
No, I just want to highlight that I appreciate the bipartisan support, especially with members on the Public Safety Committee. And also, I got a late letter of support from the Minnesota Sheriff's Association.
Thank you. Members, any questions for Representative Witte or his testifiers? Representative Curran.
Thank you, Chair. Not so much a question, but as a former dispatcher, one of the last dispatchers in the city of White Bear Lake before transitioning to Ramsey County, thank you. Just thank you so much. When people call 911, there's obviously no thought, and there shouldn't be, of who they're talking to, what information they need. They certainly shouldn't have to repeat anything. And being in the dispatcher's seat, it is crucial to be able to move on to the next thing, to get to the next person who needs to be at that scene, and to get to the next step to make sure people are safe. So just thank you for highlighting that. I think the folks who take the calls and don't get to go to the scene and help in that way, but do so much on the front end to make sure that help is on the way. We can't forget about what that looks like. And I thank you all for the work that you do, and thank you, Representative Witte, for highlighting this.
Thank you.
Representative Harder.
Thank you, Chair Novotny. Okay, my question is, because part of my district is in the rural areas, how would this affect those outside the metro, and is there any plan to roll this out at some point across the state?
Representative Witte.
Thank you for that comment. Yes, it is expandable and can be expanded out to the different areas. At this time, they've had discussions, and it might not be a top priority, but if there is a critical incident outside the metro area, I think that's when it's going to put the tax on the system, and I think it will be a great way to expand this out.
Representative Harder. Representative Duran.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And thank you for bringing this bill forward. There was, when I was talking to people about this before, there was some concerns about the access of the cases when they're made in the particular different agencies, whether or not that one dispatcher is going to still have access talking back and forth, maybe, in that different county and everybody having different CAD systems. Are they still going to have access to it as soon as it pushes over, or are they still going to be adding to that, or how does that work? Does anybody know?
Nancy, or Ms. Pass.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. There is bidirectional ability with this system, so until the call is closed itself, you are able to transfer data or comments back and forth. So updates to a call, for instance, that you would be able to still transfer that back and forth until that link is broken.
Representative Duran.
And then also, because everybody's CAD system is going to be a little bit different, and then also the generation of the case itself, is that dispatcher going to have access to the case, or does that dispatching or that call center have to create the case itself as well?
Ms. Pass.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the case is generated by one dispatcher. Once it's transferred over electronically, then the dispatcher on the other end does not have to create it. It's auto-generated. Now, they may add a responder or a response level or other comments for their responder to go to that both responders and dispatch centers would see. Then once that call is closed, then that information transfers into each CAD system, but then it goes into individual RMS systems, records management systems, that's done by the department, if that makes sense.
Yep.
Representative Graham, thank you. Any other members? Representative Stier, Witte, closing comments.
I just want to say thank you for your support and hearing the stories today.
And with that, House File 4597 as amended is laid over.
Thank you.
Next bill on the agenda is House File 1082. I will move this bill before the committee. Members, we heard this bill and amended this bill last week. Since the bill will be our committee budget bill, we need to reconsider the amendment we adopted last week. Therefore, I move to reconsider House File 1082 DE4 amendment. Is there any discussion?
Oh, okay.
We are on DE4. Any discussion? All in favor of reconsidering the DE4 amendment signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. Motion carries. Chair Moller, would you like to move the DE6 amendment before the committee? As a reminder to the members of the public, nonpartisan staff did a walkthrough of the amendment and spreadsheet and took testimony yesterday. Before we adopt the DE6 amendment, we have a number of amendments to the amendment we will consider. The A4 amendment is a technical amendment that was brought to us by the revisor's office. Chair Moller, would you like to move the A4 amendment for adoption?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Do I need to move the DE6 first for consideration, and then I'll move the A4 for adoption? And that is, to your point, what the revisor suggested, technical amendment. I think if members have questions about that, Mr. Johnson's prepared to address those.
Many members' questions about the DE4. The one? A4. The A4. Chair Moller moves adoption of the A4 amendment. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Motion carries and the A4 amendment is adopted. Representative Johnson, I believe you have the A3 amendment. Please describe your amendment.
Thank you, Chair. I'd move the A3. This just adds the LELS representative to that task force in House File 3095 that we heard. We did adopt that amendment in committee, and it was just inadvertently left off when the final bill got put together.
Thank you. Any discussion on the A3? All in favor of the A3 amendment signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. Motion carries and the A3 is adopted. Next amendment is the A9. Vice Chair Feist, please describe your amendment.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. And I will describe my very uncontroversial amendment, and then I have a slightly more controversial thing to say, but I hope it won't affect your vote on my uncontroversial amendment. So this amendment is just extending a deadline to spend an appropriation to December 15th of this year. The RFP and the original grant documents both gave until December 15th, 2026. And then OJP suddenly said, no, we actually meant June. And that is not enough time for Ramsey County to spend these dollars as intended and as they were granted. So that is the uncontroversial amendment that I hope you will support. But I also just wanted to say something broader. I found out as we were drafting this amendment that apparently $1 million of the $2 million that we allocated towards dual status youth or crossover youth, which are children involved in the juvenile justice system and the child welfare system. It's a really big issue that, sorry, I'm super emotional about it. Like, it's a really big issue at the heart of what is wrong with youth justice in the state, and we allocated $2 million toward it. And apparently, like $1 million just wasn't spent, and it wasn't until May of 2025 that Ramsey County was even granted this money with a pretty short amount of time to be able to invest it. And, you know, we had to pass an extra law last year or the year before because $4 million towards youth restorative justice grants would have similarly just died, like gone away without having been invested as we, the legislature, intended. And that makes me very angry. And, you know, when we talk about trust in government and the belief that government is here to serve us and can be effective in our lives and in our state, and then we see like money that we allocated not being spent, that is just being sat on, it really frustrates me as a Democrat who believes in government. And I just needed to say that. But I hope you'll all support my amendment, which is actually very uncontroversial. Thank you.
That absolutely not controversial, and understand the frustration. Members, any questions on the A9 amendment? All in favor of the A9 amendment signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. Motion carries and the A9 amendment is adopted. Next amendment is the A11. Chair Moller, please describe the A11 amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This amendment is one that this committee has seen multiple times. First in the form of a bill, the Domestic Violence Policy and Task Force Bill that I put forward. We split it up. This is the policy provisions that are in our policy package. But we're not sure what's going on with that package right now. And so this is just my belt and suspenders and an extra set of suspenders just to make sure that it gets included somewhere else as well. So this is language you've seen before with the exception of one change that we made. And on line 4.8, this addresses the gone on arrival situation where currently it's 72 hours where the arrest has to be made. We changed it. The original bill had it indefinite. We narrowed it down to 28 days, and talking with stakeholders a little bit further, the request was made to narrow that down to 14 days. So that's the only change to the language that you have seen multiple times already.
Thank you. I will just say that the 14 days is something that's very acceptable, and thank you for bringing that amendment. Members, questions for Chair Moller on the A11? All in favor of the A11 amendment signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Motion carries and the A11 amendment is adopted. Next amendment is the A12. I will move the A12 amendment. The A12 amendment represents the continuation of the work that Chair Robbins has been doing with the Department of Corrections on her House File 4031 bill. This bill makes changes to the Department of Corrections MinCorp program. We heard the bill last week, and the Legislative Auditor's Office provided testimony on the bill. This bill has been agreed to by the stakeholders. Members, are there any questions on the A12 amendment?
I have one, Mr. Chair.
Chair Moller.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I know that there was maybe one last minute change related to the 80% that was in here, and I'm not quite sure where that language is, if nonpartisan can point us to that. Or I know DOC is here as well, and I know that they worked on this amended language with the bill author. So I don't know if someone here can answer that question. Sorry to put you on the, I just want to know where it is in the bill. I just need a line number.
I see that Deputy Commissioner Half is approaching the table. Please begin your table and
I got promoted to commissioner. I'll tell Commissioner Schnell later. So for the record, my name is Kelly Half. I am the Legislative Director at the Department of Corrections. So the language in that F provision was what we worked out with stakeholders and Robbins. It doesn't have a percentage anymore, but it has a ratio. So it is the agreed upon language.
I would just like, that was an honorary promotion, and like being chair, there's no extra money. Chair Moller.
Thank you. Did you happen to have the line number? I'm not seeing it. I think I found it now. It's 2.28 to 2.30.
Exactly.
Okay, that's it. I just needed to put my eyes on it because I know it had been worked on. I have no issues with it. Appreciate all of your hard work on this, along with Representative Robbins.
I appreciate the promotion. Thank you.
Members, any other questions on the A12 amendment? All in favor of the A12 amendment signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Motion carries and the A12 amendment is adopted. That is the end of the amendment. Members, discussion on this bill as amended. Chair Moller.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I think we made some comments about the bill yesterday. Just really, again, appreciate our work together to put together this finance package. And I think we do have to technically withdraw the DE4 perhaps. So I will, do I have to move to do that? Okay, we withdraw the DE4 now that we're adopting the DE6 as amended. And again, just want to say thanks to everybody and all the stakeholders for your hard work on this.
Thank you. Chair Moller has renewed her motion to adopt the DE6 as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Motion carries and the DE6 as amended is adopted. Now that we have House File 1082 as amended, I will now move that House File 1082 as amended be re-referred to the Ways and Means Committee. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Motion carries and House File 1082 as amended is re-referred to Ways and Means. Last file the last bill on our agenda is House File 3230. I will move House File 3230 before the committee. We also have a delete all amendment coded as DE2 that inserts the language of our capital legislative and court security package into the bill. Since the presentation, testimony, and discussion will only be on the language of the amendment, I will move that we adopt the DE2 amendment first. All in favor of the DE2 amendment signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Motion carries and the DE2 amendment is adopted. Chair Moller, would you like to start us off? We will then have nonpartisan staff walk us through the language of the DE and the spreadsheet.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. Our leadership gave us the task of putting together a security package. So some of these bills are ones that were heard in other committees. I think maybe having nonpartisan just walk through is the best way to do it. But just in case people are wondering why this committee, we were wondering the same thing.
just had the same
But we are happy to do it.
Mr. Johnson or Mr. Walls? Mr. Walls.
Mr. Chair and members, everyone should have a spreadsheet in their packets titled 2026 Legislative, Judicial, and Capital Security. This is for House File 3230, the DE2 amendment. Beginning at the top on line 1, we start with the security for the judiciary. So for the Supreme Court, we have additional safety and security for the judges of $394,027 and $365,000 per year in tails. There's $1 million for safe and secure courthouse grants. In the appeals court, there's a smaller number for safety and security of $76,000 the first year, $49,000 a year in tails. For the district courts, safety and security, we have $1,068,000 in 27 and $692,000 a year in tails. That brings the total for judiciary security of $2.538 million in this biennium and $2,212,000 in tails. For the Department of Public Safety, we have some additions for State Patrol Capital Security. On line 26 is a State Patrol deficiency of $1,920,000 in fiscal year 26. This is for some overtime costs incurred by the department. On line 27, we have enhancements to capital security screening, $2,220,000 in fiscal year '26, $4.463 million in '27, and ongoing costs of $3.946 in '28 and $2.897 in fiscal year '29. If members are curious about the declining costs, this will be a switch over from some positions that are paid right now with overtime and switching to a lower rate by hiring new people that will be phased in over time. On line 28, capital security enhancements, we have $4.454 million in fiscal year '27 and ongoing costs of $1.47 million a year beginning in fiscal year '28. That brings the total for the Department of Public Safety funding to capital security of an additional $13,057,000 in this biennium and $9.765 million next biennium. For the legislature, on line 36, we have the House of Representatives, additional safety and security for House members. That is $938,000 in '26, $442,000 in '27, for a total of $1.380 in this biennium and $1.422 million next biennium. For the Senate, we are carrying costs in fiscal year '26 of $282,000 in '26, $104,000 in '27, which would add $386,000 in this biennium for the Senate and $316,000 in tails. Mr. Chair, there is also a provision on line 50 for, that is a policy-only provision for state capitol complex investigations. That is House File 3541, but there are no costs associated with that. On line 61, that brings the total bill spending to $17,361,000 in this biennium with $13,715,000 in tails. And that completes the walkthrough of the spreadsheet.
Thank you. Mr. Johnson?
Mr. Chair, members, Article 1 contains the appropriations that Mr. Walls just described that are on the spreadsheet. So I'm going to begin a walkthrough with Article 2, which starts at the top of page 4. Section 1 in Article 2 is an amendment to the definition of member expenses. This relates to the ability of the legislature to authorize certain expenditures for members. Right now, those expenditures relate to things like per diem, mileage, and housing. This would also include security for that authorization. Section 2 is House File 3541, which this committee has heard a few times now. There are no changes in this language from what the committee has seen before. Section 3 contains 2 reports. These are 2 reports that would be annual reports provided by the Department of Public Safety. The first report would be a public report, and the second would be a not public report. The goal of the first report is to provide enough information to the general public to understand in broad terms the security issues being dealt with through these various appropriations without providing detailed information that could compromise the security of the Capitol and others. The not public report is the more detailed report where the Department of Public Safety would be able to identify more specific concerns and issues that they would like to see addressed. That not public report would be provided to the Advisory Committee on Capital Area Security as well as to the leaders of both the House and the Senate. Mr. Chair, that's all the policy language in the bill.
Co-Chair Moller.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I just wanted to say that I certainly didn't mean to sound flippant when I introduced this bill, and just want to acknowledge the importance of not only our security, but we've got the judicial security in here as well. I think it goes without saying that we all recognize that we are in different times right now, and especially after the assassination and attempted assassination that happened this summer, in addition to the number of threats that we are experiencing and that I know the BCA can speak to as well. It doesn't seem like it's going to get better anytime soon, and it's just really unfortunate, but also really necessary. We want to make sure that people who want to run for office do run for office and don't decide not to because they're scared. Our democracy doesn't work if that happens. So anyway, just thank you for the opportunity to talk about the importance.
Thank you, Chair Moller. We also have an agreed-upon amendment to the D2 coded A3. I move the amendment A3. This amendment allows legislative leadership to request State Patrol provide protection to a member at their residence for a limited time with existing resources in response to a credible threat to the member's life or safety. Any discussion on the A3? All in favor of adopting the A3, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say nay. Motion carries and the A3 amendment is adopted. There's another amendment that we will hear today, but we will not be adopting it to the DE. Representative Green and Anderson, please come to the testifier table and present your A2 amendment. Representatives Green and Anderson, I believe this is both time I've seen you in committee, so welcome to committee. And Representative Green, start your testimony.
Thank you so much, Chair. Thanks for having us here. I just want to begin by acknowledging the Department of Public Safety, Sergeant of Arms, and all of our Gold Ties, State Patrol, the BCA, and law enforcement partners who work every day to ensure the safety and security of state legislators. I just want to thank you for your service, truly. This bill is deeply personal for many of us, and I'm really proud to be working with Representative Patty Anderson on that. This bill does two things, but the main part of it is that it expands Capitol security so that we can create a dedicated legislative services unit focused specifically on managing and responding to threats against state legislators. We are proposing a dual-lane approach. First, real-time response. This would give bipartisan leadership in both chambers the authority to elevate a member's security needs and deploy resources quickly, whether that's managing an influx of threats or providing protective services when warranted. This is in addition to the important work that is already happening. The second is a long-term strategy. This would be establishing a task force to analyze and determine how the Legislative Services Unit should best operate with stronger communication, stronger coordination and systems, consistent protections for every member, regardless of party, tenure, or geography. These improvements are warranted. We know that. The task force will also identify best practices, develop objective protocols, and draw from the expertise of existing entities and lessons learned here in Minnesota and across the country. So why? Why do we need this bill? As Co-Chair Moller just said, the threat environment related to elected and public officials in Minnesota is measurable and has resulted in violent outcomes. We all know this well. The threats against state agency commissioners, lawmakers, and the governor's office more than doubled in a single year. This year alone, we have had 46, and it's April. These incidents include stalking, doxing, direct threats, voicemails on office phone lines, to drones outside legislators' homes. There's typically not one path that a threat comes in. So beyond the uptick of frequency in these threats, the severity of attacks have also increased, including what happened in June, when Speaker Emeritus Melissa Hortman and her husband Mark were killed, when Senator John Hoffman and his wife Yvette were seriously injured, plus all of those who had the same assassin at their homes that same night, and many of us who were also on that hit list, my husband and I included, and that was politically motivated.
I want to say,
Representative Anderson.
thank you. Unfortunately, as we all know, these threats have really been growing, and many of us have had them. And it causes serious issues, not just for ourselves, but for our families, our neighbors, because our neighbors have to be told, they have to be aware, they have to watch, and our staff here at the legislature. And it's not isolated in Minnesota, we all know that. The Capitol Police at the federal level, they've seen a huge increase in threats to lawmakers and their families and staff. They investigated like 9,500 last year, or 2 years ago, and 15,000 in 2025. That is double what has happened from a decade earlier. We don't have numbers like that, but we have seen way more than double the number of threats here in Minnesota against lawmakers than what was a decade ago. Research shows us that the threats aren't one party over another, but they do more target women and minority members, and we've seen that, and we continue to see that. I don't know if it's social media or if it's just a divisive rhetoric from political leaders on all sides, or if it's just mental health issues. I don't know what's causing it, but it's increasing, it's bad, and it's scary. So we need really sustained investment. We need that because we face constraints. We know that right now. We face constraints in detecting and analyzing and mitigating threats in real time. And we cannot have what happened last summer happen again. We can't let that happen. And it wasn't just the act, it was the fact that we weren't ready. We weren't ready. And people like Representative Green and many, many others that were on that so-called list, many of them were not told for hours and hours. We know that. And we can't let that happen again. So this is more about individual safety. As we all know, the strength of Capitol Security and a dedicated legislative services unit directs our ability to function as a government. And functioning as a legislature and as a government is our responsibility. And that's why this bill matters. Thank you.
Thank you. We have 3 testifiers signed up. State Court Administrator Jeff Shorba. All right. Backing up, questions on the amendment A2 to Representative Green or Anderson? Representative Tadke.
Thank you very much, Chair Novotny. I really wish this were moving forward today, so hopefully that we can get this, continue to work and get this figured out. This is a bill that started in transportation and is something that we must pass. And so I believe that there are a lot of really great things, and I really appreciate the work that both Representatives Green and Anderson have done on this bill. It's been a lot of really difficult, hard work to get through, to find a path on this that will make sure that we are taking care of each other here at the legislature and then in the state. And so I just hope that there is a path for getting this done and moving this forward, and that this is committed by everybody for getting this bill done, because it's critically important for our future and, as Chair Moller mentioned, for democracy in the state of Minnesota. So thank you very much, both of you, for all of your work. Representative Green, this was a very big lift that I put on you, and I apologize for that, but thank you very much for all of the work that you have been doing, because the end product that you've come to here is a really important thing for Minnesota, so thank you.
Any other member questions? Representative Curran.
Thank you, Chair. And first, thank you to both chairs for having this language heard in committee today. And thank you, Representatives Anderson and Green, for working on this and not only acknowledging some historical stats on where these things have been, but the reality of where we are today. It is, we're all familiar with the worst of the worst, but as somebody who has also been on a hit list and received voicemails that are quite detailed in how one might like to unalive me. These are very, very serious things that we're dealing with, and I truly, truly hope that we can get this passed this year. And just thank you so much to both of you. This is so close to all of us for a variety of reasons, and that is so not right. But doing something about it is right, and I thank you both for that so much.
Thank you. Moving on to the testifiers. Mr. Shorba.
Mr. Chair, thank you for having me. My name is Jeff Shorba. I'm the State Court Administrator for the Minnesota Judicial Branch. And we're here really to thank you for including funding in House File 3230 to support judicial branch safety and security needs. I echo the comments of our former testifiers here with regard to the number of threats that we are seeing against judicial officers and staff also going up in the judiciary. And this bill recognizes that we need to take action. The courts, like other public institutions, are critical, and ensuring safety for our judges and staff, litigants and jurors, and members of the public in our courthouses is extremely important. It's an access to justice issue, and so the funding in this bill will allow us to take meaningful steps to address some of these safety challenges. It'll strengthen our ability to assess and respond to threats, improve coordination with law enforcement, expand training and emergency preparedness, and enhance protections for judges both online and at home. It'll also support, through a grant program, improvements, safety improvements, security improvements at courthouses across the state. So we are grateful for your support and partnership in protecting those who work and access the judicial branch across Minnesota. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up was Department of Public Safety Commissioner Jacobson. Actually, Mr. Shorba, we have a question for you. Why don't you grab the chair while you're there? Chair Moller.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you so much, Mr. Shorba, for that. And many of us had the opportunity to hear the presentation in the Judiciary Committee. I know not everybody is on the Judiciary Committee. And if you could just speak to the need for judicial security at all levels of the judiciary, not just at the Supreme Court, but at District Court, Court of Appeals, that would be great. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, Chair Moller, I'll just give you a few statistics that we are seeing just over the last year. As the previous testifier said, the last year seemed to be something happening out there. Total incidents, security incidents reported across the state and judicial branch, in the judicial branch, went up 47%. Threats to a person, self, or property went up 85%. And disturbances actually happening in a court facility went up 50%. So we are seeing the same thing that you're seeing as legislators. It used to be when somebody did not like a court decision, they would appeal it, which is the way to go. But instead, now we are getting threats. Social media has certainly accelerated that. Many of these threats are being made against judges with their home addresses, which we are trying our best to get those off of the internet. But in small towns, most people know where the judge lives. And so their threats are being made that I'm coming to your house. Judges are very scared for their families. We're seeing the same things that we're seeing in other parts of government. And unfortunately, we had an incident here in Minnesota with legislators last summer. Indiana, a couple of months ago, had a same incident, a judge at his home with his wife, a litigant who knew they were going to be coming before the judge on a trial, came to the house, knocked on the door, the judge answered the door, and the judge was shot. Fortunately, he survived, but he did lose part of his arm, and his wife was not injured. But it's very disturbing to see these kinds of things happening with the same kind of method of operation that we're seeing with other public institutions. So now is the time our council decided we really needed to ask for some help from the legislature. So that's the background.
Chair Moller, thank you. Now, Commissioner Jacobson. And Representatives Greens and Anderson, if you want to have a seat or you can stay up there, that's up to you. Commissioner Jacobson.
Good afternoon, Chair Novotny, Chair Moller, members of the Public Safety Committee. My name is Bob Jacobson. I am the Commissioner of the Department of Public Safety. It's my honor to be here today. First of all, I just wanted to note our thanks to Representative Green, Representative Anderson for the work that we've continued to do on Representative Green's bill. We know that it has been a traumatizing, difficult time since June 14th for many of our members. We understand and certainly want to make sure that we are doing all that we can to work with our legislators to make them feel safe. I heard the comment that we want to make sure that others will want to serve in these positions, and that if safety and security is a concern or an issue, we don't want that to be, that would be an impediment to many people who want to continue to serve. So we will ask to continue to have some of those discussions on this bill, but we look forward to having those discussions and moving on. I also do want to just briefly address the capital security issues that I know will be coming up today as well. So if you don't mind, I'll just have a few comments with that, and then I'm going to turn it over to Colonel Bogojevich, who is here also and can speak into some more details on that. Again, as you know, safety is paramount importance, and capital security certainly is too. Capital security is not just about a building. It is about a commitment to making legislators, staff, and the public safe so they can be in a place where everyone who visits has an opportunity to participate and have their voices heard. Weapon screening was one of the highest priority recommendations from the Axtell report on capital security issued a few months ago, and we were very thankful to be able to get that report and present it forward. Implementing weapon screening this session has allowed us to ensure that individuals are not bringing prohibited items into the Capitol. I appreciate that the bill today includes funding for screening on an ongoing basis, but I'd like to see funding levels that match the governor's recommendation that would allow for year-round screening at the 4 entrances that have been in place during this session. I do want to thank you for including funding for the State Patrol deficiency that resulted from a year of unprecedented events, mutual aid requests, and additional legislative protection. I want to thank specifically Representative Duran for the inclusion in the bill, for clarifying that the State Patrol is the lead agency for criminal investigations in the Capitol grounds in that area. And I also want to make sure that you know that we appreciate that there's funding for capital security enhancements, but also we would certainly like to see them funded at the governor's recommended levels. With that, I'll turn it over to Colonel Bogojevich for some additional details on some of these initiatives. Thank you.
Colonel, go ahead.
Good afternoon, Chair Novotny, Co-Chair Moller, and members of the committee. I'm Christina Bogojevich, and I serve as the Colonel of the Minnesota State Patrol. Thank you, Chairs, for your work on the Capital Security Bill. The first inclusion is for the Minnesota State Patrol General Fund deficiency. This past year has brought many unexpected, unplanned events for the State Patrol. June 14th required us to stand up additional executive, judicial, and legislative protections, along with adjustments in staffing around the state capitol. In the fall, the Annunciation shooting took place in the city of Minneapolis. We had personnel staff places of worship and schools around the city for 2 weeks. The most recent was Metro Surge, where we had additional staff, anywhere from 25 to 100 mobile response troopers that responded to many different areas, including hotel demonstrations around the metro area, response to the Whipple building, and in response to the shootings during Metro Surge. Our mobile response team was in the metro area 20 out of 30 days from January to February. The second inclusion is for ongoing screening. The language in this proposal would have our current screening model in place during the upcoming sessions. The current model covers 4 doors into the Capitol building for anyone who is not exempt from going through screening. Outside of session timelines, we would staff 1 door, the current south door, during business hours only. Session hours would be covered by overtime, and the ongoing south door would allow for up to 2 full-time troopers and 4 Capitol security officers. The final inclusion is for Capitol area enhancements. These recommendations allow us to implement some of the deficiencies that have been outlined in the past assessments, including the most recent Axtell report. These are also recommendations through the ACAS committee. We have also spent time touring and researching best practices around the nation at state capitol buildings and the national capitol. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any testifiers that wish to speak on this bill? Member questions? Representative Duran.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. One of the things that's kind of going around here is the training that State Patrol has and what they're actually going to be getting and receiving, obviously, in regards to some of the issues that we have within the Capitol. Can you explain to me what the training is for your troopers? Because there's a big difference between 169s and 609s, which is traffic statutes and criminal statutes. So with that being said, the things that are going to be happening here are mainly going to be criminal statutes. And then can you explain what you're doing for the training for your troopers that are here?
Colonel?
Chair Novotny, Representative. Yes, so first of all troopers are licensed peace officers in the state of Minnesota. So they do have training in 609 as they go through college. However, then they go through our academy, which is very focused on traffic safety. When they transfer into the Capitol, we do have some internal training on occurrences that happen here. However, we have most recently hired on a threat investigator. She has attended several trainings, again, to detect those threats. She works very closely with the BCA, along with troopers as timing allows. We also send them to those specific trainings too for investigations, of course, aligning more with 609 than 169. If this is approved and moves forward, it does have some funding in it for additional training to ensure that everyone who works on the Capitol ground gets that training very specific to the Capitol.
Representative Duran.
And if this bill doesn't pass for some reason, is there going to be some ongoing training and some stuff that's going to be happening with your troopers right now to make sure that they are up to speed? Because we're dealing with threats, we're dealing with disorderly conduct, trespassing, all these other things that maybe these guys aren't necessarily trained in on a regular day-to-day basis. I just want to make sure that we're setting these guys up for success instead of putting them into a situation that they may not be ready for. So,
Colonel?
Chair Novotny, Representative. I appreciate that statement, and absolutely, we will ensure that we are setting everyone up who works on the Capitol grounds for success, and we will seek out those training opportunities as we have the past probably year and a half to current, and we will continue to do that.
Co-Chair Moller.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to take a minute to thank you, Commissioner and Colonel, and to our security staff in the room as well. You know, the events of this year have been really emotional and difficult for all of us, and I know that that is true for the folks that are working on these issues as well. So just wanted to acknowledge that and also express thanks for how quickly some of the things have been put into place. You know, I think a lot of us noticed the difference, and we really are appreciative, again, from the Gold Ties to the troopers to the CSOs that are here to your staff and the BCA, everybody working on these issues. So just wanted to express my gratitude. Thank you.
Thank you. With that, House File 3230 as amended is late. With that, House File 3230 as amended is laid over. Members, this is likely our final Public Safety Committee meeting of the biennium. I'd like to offer members the opportunity to make any remarks before we adjourn. We will, and then have closing remarks by myself and Representative Moller, but mine will be a lot shorter. Other members? Representative Curran.
Thank you, Chair Novotny, and I'll just say the last two sessions have truly been a pleasure. It's been tricky operating in a tie, but I'm really proud of the work that you and Chair Moller have done together to bring us together on so many issues that we have to offer. I think this committee has been an excellent example to the rest of the legislature on what we can do in a tie. And you're both just great examples of trying to push forward in a tough environment. So you'll both be missed, and thank you so much for your leadership.
Thank you. Representative Hollins.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Can you say you agree with me just one more time, like you did last year?
Say you agree with her one more time.
I agree. Representative Hollins was right.
Don't let that go to our head.
All right. After that, Co-Chair Moller, we should flip a quarter, or?
I'm going to be really brief after you made that comment.
No,
before.
that's not a reflection of you, it's a reflection of me.
I did make some comments yesterday. It is a pleasure, has been a pleasure to work with you, work with everybody on this committee. I'm just so grateful for the work that we've been able to accomplish together. And I really want to shout out to both partisan and nonpartisan staff. You know, with our two CAs here, I think a lot of the work that we've been able to get done is because of their diligence and their good working relationship. In addition to our partisan researchers, you know, we work together across the aisle when we get together with the other body. We had a lot of fun discussions together as a group. And again, to the nonpartisan staff, who's just amazing and always receptive and responsive to all of our sometimes crazy ideas. So just want to thank everybody.
When I used to sit through these last closing days of session and not having been a chair and knowing what was going on and how much work was involved, I didn't understand why people could get, you know, attached and emotional. To be a chair, you don't understand just how much work is done by the chairs, the legislative staff, the nonpartisan staff that comes in. A lot of the people that we've been in contact with that are in the crowd today, the commissioners, the groups that we oversee, public safety, corrections, just how many hours that go into this that the public does not see and the public does not know, and the phone calls. And, you know, there have been times myself and Chair Moller have not agreed. And, you know, we still will have times that we don't agree going forward before the end of session. But there's still a desire to come to a solution that helps everyone. And be that in the car ride home, comparing notes or trying to figure out what the other one meant by stuff. So at least we come to an agreement so we know where we're at. Like I said, for the commissioners that have taken my phone calls or the many legislative directors and assistant things, you know, if you took my call in the last 2 years, thank you. I appreciate it. Weekends, all that. For the people that are here and the committee members, thank you for being here. And I think that we did good work this year. We did good work last year, and look forward to seeing you all in the future. Thank you. And with that, this meeting is adjourned.